Welcome to Intangibles Podcast. I'm Steve BERG, your host. Success is driven by how as much as by what. How we communicate, how we lead, how we relate to our environment are all vitally important. Intangibles is a podcast that explores the underlying traits, qualities, and behaviors that improve the how. This is accomplished by finding the people who have studied and been successful practicing these soft skills and having informed conversations with them to get to what is learnable. Let's begin. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. It's an old saw from Dale Carnegie, but it's true. Just exactly how interested you should become and how you go about showing that interest is not explicit in this quote, but it is part of the topic we're exploring in this episode of Intangibles. My guest today is Stu Heinecke. He is a Wall Street Journal cartoonist, among other things. During his career, he's become a Hall of Fame nominated marketer, and he has learned a lot about how to communicate with people. Specifically, he's gained an understanding about the best ways to break through to people. This is commonly known as contact marketing. To me, there's a lot of grounding behavioral psychology. I see Stu's skill set as how to humanize a message and how to interact on a person-to-person level, even if you may not have met that person before. Stu has written a book that captures his learnings called How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. Today, I'm going to ask him about the underlying principles of the book, which I see as the what of breakthrough communications. What I want to tell you up front is there is a lot of tools in the book that will help execute contact marketing strategies, which I will call the how. If after we finish talking, you're interested in the what, you should read the book to learn the how. With that as a backdrop, Mr. Stu Heinecke, welcome to Intangibles Podcast. Thanks so much for speaking to me today.
Oh, I'm so glad to join you, Steve.
Hopefully, the people listening have gathered that you're quite accomplished, but is there anything specifically about your work or career that I should have highlighted in the intro?
I think you did a great job. I mean, I just come at all this with probably the most, well, not the most, but certainly a very unusual background because I'm trained as a marketer. I mean, that's my degree, but I'm also a cartoonist and in fact, one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and I've been writing books. And so someone actually asked me recently, what is it you do? And it's really hard to explain it. But I think what it is I bring insights to people in various forms. Cartoons are one, books are another. I'm speaking and so forth, training. And I hope that these insights are something that change people's lives. And I know with getting meetings, it does change people's lives. It's kind of like having a superpower.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I read it and kind of took it in, it seems like you have a really good left brain, right brain balance, which is kind of, it seems like a requirement for that kind of empathy that allows people to know that you're human. Let's dig in. So in general, I would say communicating to people that you don't know is difficult, right? Mass communications, we all know, are not particularly effective. In order to break through, and what I mean by that is, getting people to want to listen and want to respond. Let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of the message that's being sent, just to start out. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I guess just on a human level, we want to make sure that we show up as another human being. We want to humanize ourselves. If you think about, let's say, the experience of being on LinkedIn or really any social media platform, but certainly LinkedIn, you'll get a lot of requests for connections, and a lot of those, I don't know, let's say some of them at least, are simple. They end up being simple pitches. You can see the disconnect. I don't know this person yet, so why am I going to sit and listen to a random pitch? They don't know me either, and they have no idea what I'm doing or if you can't tell what I'm doing from my profile, really. I mean, you can tell what I did a long time ago, but you can't tell what I'm doing now. And so, if you haven't taken the time to understand what's going to be valuable to me or relevant to me or what I'm doing. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake people make in general is they're just so anxious to make connections. And I think your audience is a startup audience.
Typically, yeah, but broader than that. But in general, yes, folks that could get caught up in the I of it instead of thinking about the
Yeah.
you of
Well,
it.
and also when you're in startup mode, you need to start. You're starting from scratch. Really, you have connections. That's great. But essentially, you're starting from scratch. The need to connect with the right people for investments, for new clients, for establishing a client base, for new partnerships, and on is incredibly acute. So you've got to be able to connect with people quickly. But you don't do it by pitching. You do it by, we all know this. You make connections with people first, and they get to know you as a human, as someone they like, and perhaps someone they trust and that they're intrigued by. And at that point, you're kind of invited. At least you should be able to say, "Hey, by the way, can we have a conversation about what I do, or what I?" Because can we have a conversation about business? Essentially, it's almost permission based now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a little by little, and two, there is that establishment of trust, right? And I think, you don't just get to 100% trust right away, right? I mean, you kind of earn your way there.
I would say trust. I would say though it's trust and rapport, and they're different things. And I know it's going to come out in our discussion here, but
Yeah.
but you can do things. And in fact, I've made a living here on doing things that create a rapport very quickly. They don't know me yet, but it creates a rapport really quickly. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I think, you should almost start with that I mean, we're not going to do it now, but others listening should kind of start with that definition of rapport, right? And that is the humanized part. And the other piece that I particularly liked about when you talked about communications in your book, the originality of it, right? Something that's unique. I think, as individuals, we are drawn to that which is unique, and also a little audacious, right? Something with a little panache, something with a little something that might make me raise an eyebrow to think, wow, there's some brain cells firing on the other end of this conversation that might be worthwhile.
Precisely. In fact, what I was going to say is we could boil all that down to we want to create a flip moment. I'll come back to that, but we want to create a flip moment where they go from "Who's this?" because you're interrupting them, right? I mean, by definition. So who's this? To "Wow, who is this?" And because that's a flip moment, and that flips the switch to something completely different. And so really, what we want to see happening as a result of any of these contact strategies is the person receiving end saying, "Wow, I love the way you think." So that creates, well, it certainly creates rapport. It probably also respect, but it creates rapport really quickly, and you can do that very quickly by doing something that is perhaps unexpected. Certainly something of great value. I'm trying to sort of describe these things in abstract, but I know exactly what it is that these are in practice. But in abstract, I guess that's really what it is. You want to cause someone on the other end of this to be saying, "Wow, I love the way you think. Who is this?"
That's right. If you're thinking kind of full force, full throttle, that should come through in your communications.
Yeah.
All right. So I know that the title of the book is "How to Get a Meeting with Anyone," right? And I know that you're saying that anyone you want to communicate with is a target. I'm giving over to that. However, I would say initially, based on our definition of the communications, right? The fact that there needs to be targeted interest, there needs to be a problem that you can help them solve or a value that you can provide. It's not entirely fair to say that you should want to even break through with everyone. Sometimes there just isn't that value proposition yet. So let's narrow the field just a touch for the purposes of, let's call it a startup audience or a behavioral psychology audience. Who are the people in your mind that make the most sense to break through to initially And it, what kind of deeper connection do you think that you can have with them? Again, knowing that you've probably never communicated with them before.
Yeah, well, actually, great. You bring up a great point. By the way, I have two books out on the subject. So one is How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, and then there's a second one that came out last year called Get the Meeting. So they're companion books. But How to Get a Meeting with Anyone is, I can see how someone would say, but wait a minute, there's no targeting in that. You really, you need to know exactly who you want to meet with, and so saying with anyone kind of imply or could imply that you're just indiscriminately looking for meetings, and that would be a big waste of time for everybody. I agree. So you definitely want to be very, very targeted in who you're reaching out to, because to your question, you want to be reaching out to the people who can change your scale. I mean, selfishly, from your perspective as the contact marketer, as the one behind these campaigns and behind these requests for meetings, you want to reach out to the people who can make the biggest difference to your business and to your career, or to your career, depending on what your position is. But these are the ones that are the dream. They could be dream clients. They could be dream investors or dream strategic partners. You will want to know a lot about, if you're reaching out to someone to propose a strategic partnership, you better know a lot about their business and what value you're going to bring. And if you don't bring value, then you shouldn't be reaching out. I mean, I think that's kind of the bingo here, isn't it?
It totally is the bingo, right? And that is, and I'll ask you to dig down in this a little bit in a moment, but that is understanding your value first, and maybe more importantly, understanding your value to the person you're trying to
Yeah,
engage
yeah,
with.
absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the essence of it. If you don't have value to bring to them specifically, and you don't know what it is, I mean, what it is that would make a difference to them. I mean, you may not know exactly. I mean, that's why we have conversations, but you ought to have a pretty good idea. There ought to be a great premise to start with, because otherwise there won't be a conversation.
Right. And this, what this, it's just a big reminder to do your
Yes.
thinking up front. Right. And when we talk about narrowing the field here, you should be thinking about, all right, Lee Iacocca, what is the reason why I want to talk to that person? What is the value that I'm bringing? Like, that thinking should be done up front as a qualification
Yeah. Yeah.
beforehand, right? And by the way, that thinking is not easy, right? That is not, like, you really have to wrap your brain around that um, ahead of time, so that you've got a fairly firm grasp, which is going to be the anchor that you then start to build off of as you build your communications, as you build your maps and your kind of your expected interactions. Um, all right. So again, I said I'll have you fill in the details later, but high level, what's a top 100 list, and why? Why is it only 100?
You could also ask, why is it so many, as many as 100? Right? Because some of the campaigns that I've featured in the book are campaigns to one person who can change everything in the scale of your business, and they're great stories of that. I mean, that's where some of the biggest ROIs to these campaigns comes from, are these campaigns that are really targeting one person even. So I think 100's a pretty generous number, actually. And I don't think you want to go beyond, unless you're a large, I mean, a Fortune 250 client, yes, they have more than 100. They have more than 100 accounts they want to reach out to. But just in general, that's a good number to start with. Or you could say 10 or even 50, something like that, top 25. The thing is, you want to identify the people, again, who, if you got them as clients, they'd become dream clients. They'd change your scale. Or the people who if you got them as strategic partners, could change your scale because they open entirely new sales channels you would never be able to create on your own. Certainly, it would speed up your entry to market, and so forth. So, I mean, I'm writing a new book, and so right now my asks are for very interesting and important people to do interviews with me, and even then, I have to know why. I have to come prepared with why I'm reaching out to them specifically. And I mean, I guess I do it naturally because, the book is about weeds and weed strategy for growth. And I'm reaching out to one of the people I'm reaching out to is Buzz Aldrin. I don't think of him as a businessman. Perhaps I mean I know he's a consultant, but I don't particularly think of him as a businessman. But I want to know his perspectives on how weeds and actually really how what he has done, that major thing he did in life and space exploration, how does that spread us as a species, and how does that relate to the weed strategies that I've outlined in my pitch to him? And so I know exactly why I want to ask. I mean, it will be actually could be a very short interview because I really know exactly what I want to zero in on. And that's the thing that we need to do naturally. So yeah, I mean, getting back to your question, the top 100 these are the people, and you should know who they are. These are the people that you need to get in touch with, that are the highest priority to connect with, and then you should be working on it. And if you don't have them in a list, you're not going to be working on it.
So one, that's right, got to write it down. But I was thinking that the reason that you chose 100 is because after a while, like those people are really going to be important, right? 100 to 200 probably less important. 200 to 300 even less important. And you want to keep your eye on the ball, right? You want to keep your eye on. So I actually viewed it as a limiting function for you to make sure that those people were worthy, right? And that you could afford them the amount of thinking that each one of them deserves as you kind of get ready, right? If you start going beyond that, I think you kind of reach capacity.
Well, it becomes I was going to
Fairly
say it
quick.
becomes something else. Then goes into mass marketing, and this is not mass marketing. Contact marketing is micro focused campaigns that open doors to people who are of critical importance to you, and people who can change your scale. That's what it is. So I mean, just by definition, you don't go out to. I mean, it's not like direct marketing where you or digital marketing where you go out to thousands or millions of people. It's just not that at all. And if you start thinking of it that way, then you're not practicing contact marketing.
You've lost the essence. Yeah. Um, you know, I think that you alluded to this before, but I think it's worth illuminating the point a little bit. These 100 people, they're decision makers. They have authority, right? They can leverage the value that you have through like a megaphone, right? They can blow it out for you. Force multipliers, right? The other thing that I thought that I found interesting, which I couldn't really work into a question, but I'd like to spend a moment on it, is it doesn't matter if they seem out of reach.
All the better, actually, because you'll be able to reach them. You can reach. I mean, no one's really out of reach.
Right. They just seem out of reach sometimes.
They seem out of reach, and some people may not want to meet with you. You still have to deal with that.
They may not initially. They just
It may
don't know
not
why
initially.
they do yet.
There is persistence that comes into play, but they may not be the fit that you thought. So there's sort of there's certainly a fluidity to this that you've got to maintain. But then, so having said that, though, oh my God, don't count anybody out because they seem out of your league. For example, that's kind of one of the fun parts of this. Really fun aspects of this is that, well, no, actually, no one is out of your league.
Right. And by the way, that list will be different, right? I mean, if you're a podcaster, that might be, for me, that might be like the top 100 behavioral psychologists of all time. Or if you're if you're a salesperson, it might be, your, biggest targets, whatever. But that list is going to be defined by the value that you're bringing and by the thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And, I often, in the two books, I often talk about reaching out to CEOs, but CEOs aren't the only ones who run things in their companies. So really and Ian Reno gave me this term, and I just love it. He said, we should be going after the CEOs of the problems that we want to solve. So maybe a better way of thinking of CEOs, but they could be all the way up to the CEO. And I never shy away from reaching out to a CEO. Especially the CEOs, they're really unique people, and they have their finger on the pulse of everything, and they want their enterprise to succeed. And so if you bring the right value, they'll at least find out or figure out who it is they want you to talk to. So they're great contacts.
Yes. And your point there is that top down reference referral And that's hugely important, right? Everybody's going to try to do what their boss tells them, right? So yeah, find the person above there and let them do the work for you.
Another benefit to that is that if the CEO likes what you brought to them, they'll make nobody's sitting around. He's not sitting around saying, but our budget isn't renewed until next year, and they'll say, you know what, I want this done. Let's find the money to get it done.
Yes, they're the people responsible for the vision,
Yeah,
not the T's and C's. The T's and C's people oftentimes will get caught up, not no pun intended, in the weeds.
yeah.
and
In those
and
ways,
they can lose perspective. So all right, great. All right. So
yeah.
we've got, we've done a little bit of thinking about who it is, but there's even more thinking, isn't there? Right? Once you know who's on the list, then what do we do?
Oh well, you got to figure out how you're going to reach out to them,
Well,
right?
yes, that's right. You're going to do your homework, right?
Yeah. Well, true. You're going to do your homework, and you need to start thinking about, well, what method am I going to use to reach out to them, because it's very important. And these they can be formal campaigns, or they can be very informal. As you're doing your homework, I mean, I guess we could also be calling that as a profile scrape, or describing that as a profile scrape. So you're looking through their social media feeds, you're grabbing things. You grab their picture off their profile. You can do things with their pictures. This is kind of the low hanging fruit, but where they went to school. Some people like to send mugs or T-shirts from their alma mater. But you want to start looking for, particularly, what are they writing about? What are they posting about? You want to go to their sites, grab their bio, understand who they are, and so yeah, there's a lot you can do to understand who they are, and also, of course, do the research as to how you're going to reach them. And there's a really interesting. There are more and more tools of this. There's one that are out there, but there's one that I like a lot, called, well, two, Seamless.ai and then Nimble, and both of them give you opportunity, or they give you a way to find these contact details pretty easily, which is very helpful. That's a great shortcut.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have never been a person for the word dossier. It feels a little invasive. It feels a little stockish. But I think that's here. I think we're actually building a profile of not only what these people are interested in, what they think, what they're thinking about, how they think. I think that, I would ask the question why, but I would hope that it would be obvious.
Well, you got to get up to speed.
Well, yes, you got to get up to speed, but the reason why is because they're people,
Yeah.
and this is how, finding out about them. Back to the initial Dale Carnegie quote: "Being interested in their things is how you become interesting to them." So that's why, right? Because if you really, to the extent, put yourselves in their shoes for a little while, your communication is going to be better.
It is, and it could be something like, well, okay, so I use cartoons. I don't know if the audience does, but I use I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. I've used my cartoons my whole career to break through to people. And so if I'm sending a cartoon and it relates to, if it's more generic, it might just relate to their success in business. And I get a lot of mileage out of that. So it's about them and it's about their success in business. And it might be my big board thing. So it's an 18 by 24 inch, quarter-inch thick foam core board. I mean, it's something they could frame if they wanted to. And there's a cartoon by one of the people in my group, so me or someone else. So it's one of the Wall Street Journal or New Yorker cartoonists, and it's about them. They're going to save that the rest of their careers. They'll keep it out in their credenza or somewhere. They'll keep it out on display somehow. And so that's wonderful. Now, some of the cartoons that I have also allow me to drop in some of those details from profile scrapes. So if I know that they have a dog named Bob, I might drop that into the cartoon, and that just becomes a really special cartoon to them. It has to be on target. It has to say, they have to agree with the premise of the cartoon. Otherwise, it's junk. And it has to be about them as well. That's sort of, I'm throwing a lot at you really, really quickly, but has to be about them. It has to be focused on their identity, not yours. Again, the Dale Carnegie message is coming through. But when it's about them, it just works wonders. And it doesn't have to be a cartoon,
Right.
and you don't have to be a cartoonist to do this, right? I mean, That's not the requirement. It's just, you've got to do something that you know a little bit about them. Hey, I heard you speaking. I went to this article and I saw your quote and I was wondering, what did you mean by this when you said that? And, or just, I know you're really interested in falconry. Here's something I think you'll really enjoy. I mean,
Yes.
there's a story
Yes,
about
we
that.
traded stories about that, I recall.
But that
Um,
really opens
but
doors.
I mean, I think, yes, we're not all cartoonists, but what you're talking about is the moment that's a little bit audacious. And what you're talking about is you have understood their source of power, right? And that is going to be really compelling to people.
It might be their source of power. It might be their source of joy.
Excellent.
And I
Yeah,
think it actually becomes your source of power.
good point. Good. Well, yeah, I mean, that really, jujitsu is really the whole idea here.
I think so. Yeah, using their energy and
Yeah,
strength
yeah, yeah.
to your advantage. That's
I
true.
liked also, and again, couldn't necessarily figure out how to work this into a question, but part of the topic, you've got to possess information, intelligence, and insight, right? When you're communicating, again, that's collecting information, but that is, you know, allowing you to connect the dots to say something that's bright, right? That's back to the letting them know that you are a shrewd thinker, that there's neurons firing on your side.
Yeah. Again, if I knew that you had a dog, or let's say a pug, and I sent you a cartoon about it, I mean, I have one in mind. So there's two women having coffee, and um, one of them is saying, Steve Berg says you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at their pug. I tend to agree. So if you had the pug, I mean, I
Of
wouldn't say
course.
pug if you didn't, but if you had a pug, then you'd be going, oh God, this thing's great. Who is this, by the way? And man, I love the way you think. We're always looking for that effect on the other end of this of, I love the way you think. And not only does that open a conversation, but it opens a conversation in a wonderful place. They really want to know, I guess, what you know. They want to hear what you have to say.
Well, what you just did there was you allowed me the opening to tell you what one of my favorite cartoons of yours is. Again, complete non
Oh,
sequitur. It's the one, there's two guys sitting across the table from each other in an office. And the guy behind the desk says, well, look, we've taken down all your information. You're in our CRM systems. I guess all there's left to do is actually have a meeting.
right. We actually have to
Right.
talk.
So, which,
Yeah.
to me, that was like the getting to the heart of that breakthrough communication. We've done everything. We know everything there is to know about you. Now we should probably just,
We might as well have the meeting too.
exactly. Might as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to move on just a bit. Let's talk about establishing your value. Um, I would like to ask why is it important, but I think it should be obvious why it's important. But maybe we can talk about how do you figure out what your value is, and how you use the dossier that you've built to figure out how you fit in the world of the person that you're going to, you're seeking to break through to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the value could be looked at in two ways. So one is what value, well, who are you? What is there about you that I might like to know you better as a result of? And the other though is the value that you want, just the value of what you do or what you're proposing to bring. And I think that's really the value you're talking about. So the value of the value of the thing that you propose to bring to them. So in how to get a meeting with anyone, I actually devoted a chapter to, I think I called it your VIP makeover, but something along those lines. Um, you want to have a VIP statement, let's say a dozen words or less, that you can blurt out to someone that has them saying, oh, really? Well, how would you do that? Or something along those lines. Not just saying, hi, I'm vice president of this, and this is the company, and we make widgets, and we're in 150 countries. It's nothing like that. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep using my example, but it's the one I use all the time. So when I'm sending a big board to someone, I'll first talk to their executive assistant, and that's such a ripe subject to talk about. A lot of things there, but one of the things you need to do is you need to convince that assistant really quickly that that you're someone that they should be letting through or bringing through, really. So your VIP statement has to speak to that. So mine always is, hi, I'm Stu Heinecke. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and I'm calling because I'm sending a print of a cartoon and it's about your boss. I'm sending it. I just, I want it to be a surprise to your boss, but not to you. And so that usually has them saying, wait, what? Really? That creates that rapport. Remember, they don't really know me enough to say, well, I trust you yet. So I'm just saying, I'm someone that's out of that your boss is going to want to know really quickly. I'm saying all this. Someone that your boss is going to want to know is going to want to talk to, and I'm just going to send a print. I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons, and it happens to be about him or her. Um, so it's something that I think I'd like this assistant shouldn't be throwing this away. Right. They should be saying, "Oh, okay, great." And we have to remember about assistants that certainly one aspect of their job, probably the most visible aspect of their jobs to people on the outside, is they keep the people out that aren't supposed to be talking to their executive. They keep you out. If you have no business talking to the executive, they're going to make sure you don't. But that's only a small fraction of what they do. They're also in charge of letting the right people through. And so you need to focus on that, first of all. Like, what makes you one of the right people to be let through? And so if the boss knows you, of course you're let through. But if you come with this extraordinary value, one that a value that they know that their boss is going to want to know about, because I think that's part of their jobs as well, is they're also there to spot opportunities that their boss or otherwise wouldn't have known about, would never hear about it. And so they need to spot those things too and let them through.
Well, I will tell you one thing that I know in my world. Oftentimes we call it product market fit, right? Does your product really solve a problem in the marketplace? And that could be you as a person if you're your product, or that could be whatever you're building. And I will tell you that oftentimes, you'll talk to a founder and they'll be like, "Yeah, you got it licked," but they don't really. And they go into the marketplace and they mess around for 3, 4, 5 months until they realize, wait, we don't really have the product market fit, and we need to spend a little bit more time understanding the other side. Because that changes how we message, that changes the features that we decide to emphasize. They get to product market fit, and then life becomes much, much easier, right? The stuff going to the top of the funnel increases, the amount of closers increase, the time to value, like all of that increases. So, this is one where you can definitely get tripped up, not fully understanding your value or your value to them, and one where you can think, "Oh, I've done my thinking," but you may not have.
I'm again interviews for the Weed Strategies, and I'm talking to a lot of people on the venture capital side and startup side, and so they're saying, look, when startups first appear, actually, I'm thinking about one guy who's an investor, and he was telling me that, look, I'm investing in the person, not the product yet, because invariably these products change a lot, because there is that product market fit that needs to be honed, and perhaps unlikely isn't yet. But they want to know what's your origination story, and if you swam across, if you hopped a boat and went across an ocean, like on a raft, somehow got to this country because you had to start companies, and you started a couple, some worked and a lot didn't. They're really interested in you because you have seasoning. You actually understand the process, and you're not so tied to one product idea that you're inflexible. I think that creates greater and greater flexibility, and it's the kind of thinking that they want behind any venture that they
and it's not
in.
necessarily just investors, right? It is first customers too, right? They're like, "Hey, if we believe you're going to get there, we can take the chance. But if you're not, if you don't have that grit, if you don't have that humility, if you're not listening to us, well, we're not going to spend the time and energy."
Yeah. I mean, we buy into stories all the time, don't we? I mean, Elon Musk's story is amazing, but there are others. I just interviewed Henrik Fisker,
The one that didn't
the
work.
founder of Yes, that's true, actually. Yeah, but the founder of Fisker Automotive, and then before that, the designer of Aston Martin models and a BMW Z8 was really classic. He's produced incredible stuff, and so he has this origination story that we buy. I buy it. I mean, I'm saying, okay, the Fisker Ocean is coming out. It's an SUV. I don't really need one. But I don't know if I'm going to get an SUV. There's a story behind it.
Yeah.
I just love when there's enough stories behind it,
Wow.
and I know we all do.
Nice. That's pretty powerful, right? Okay, so let's say we've established our own value, we've established our targets, we're ready to communicate. When we're making the actual connection, um, that's most. We think we're thinking to ourselves, most of our homework is done, but there's still.
There's a lot
This is
left.
where details begin to matter, right? Where you start going from broad brush strokes to kind of, smaller, more kind of thoughtful, perfect motion, right? So let's talk a little bit about the act of the communication. What do you think about that vis-a-vis the question?
Well, that's what my books are mostly about. Is then what is it that you do? What form do these things
Yeah.
take? And so, well, I'm going to look at what we're doing right now. We're having an interview, and I'm sure you've noticed that this can be. I don't know if you use it this way, but this is certainly a way to create connections with people that you might want to be connected with for other reasons. So interviewing someone is a great way to get to know each other.
Good point.
And so interviews, podcasts, and the like are great contact devices, actually. So that's one. And it's a great way to provide value. Roundtables are a great way to provide value. So roundtables on Zoom, and it's just a chance to get together with your peers and brainstorm about a certain issue, is a great way to connect with people.
Let me frame it a different way. If it's an email or a phone call, a letter, a handwritten letter, an in-person meeting, an interview, whatever it is, all of those are ways, right? And those are gonna emphasize different things. I think what you're saying, but it's so innate to you that I don't know if everyone's hearing it, is you must execute this very cleanly, making it sound the right way, speaking in the language the person wants to hear it with the language they want to hear, making it short and be precise, bespoke to its audience. I think those are the things. Granted, some ways are better than other ways for different things, but all of them can be good. All methods of communication can be, as long as you're doing it in a very focused manner.
Yes. And there are just so many ways, so many forms then it can take. But yeah, I think it's just pure choice. You can do almost anything in your outreach. So it could be as simple as, and that's why I was starting to, maybe I got a little into the weeds myself. But
I think you're just so close to it. I think you're so close.
There's so many things you can do, and so you can develop a formal campaign, or you can do what a lot of people do now, which I call deep personalization in Get the Meeting, the later book, and that's just we've already done the profile screen. You can do things directly from that, and people have been very, very successful from just saying, "Oh, well, I've just discovered." I'm now going to sort of pull in one story, but I've just discovered this person is really interested in falconry, and you then find a gift. So, and falconry is pretty easy. They wear those beautiful ornate gloves. You only have to buy one of them. They don't use it on both sides. So, but buy a beautiful glove. There's a specific story I have in mind that I'm thinking about when saying that, of someone who used that very thing and broke through, even though the prospect was saying, "Hey, thanks." I got to give a little bit of background. Two sales colleagues were targeting this one prospect, and they discovered that he was interested in falconry. So they went to a falconry site, asked the owner, "What can we get? What's the perfect gift for someone who's a falconer?" And he said, "Get him this glove. It's $100. That's all." So okay, so they got the glove. They also downloaded the picture, and they sent the picture over with an email saying, "Hey, I just ordered this glove for you. I know you're really interested in falconry, and so I hope you enjoy the glove. I'm sending it because, though, I'd love to have a conversation with you. about what we do and how that might be a fit for you, because I think it would be. The guy wrote back and he said, hey, listen, that's really cool of you. Thank you so much. I love falconry. I love the glove. I can't wait to get it. But I'm not a prospect for what you do. So in fact, that's why I haven't been responding before. Well, okay. So then the glove arrives. And when that happened, the guy got in touch right away. He said, oh my God, I just got the glove. It's so cool. I love it. And remember, I told you I was not a prospect for your services. Well, I'm not. But look, I know 3 CIOs at other companies who are. They're looking for what you're offering right now. So I'm going to make introductions, and they got a few 6-figure deals out of that, out of $100 glove.
Yeah.
That's kind of the essence
Yeah.
of
Well, I mean, look, I
contact
mean that,
marketing.
I had mentioned the word bespoke, but I mean, if there's, that is as bespoke of a story, I think, as you can really get, right? All, I don't know, kind of guess 2,000 falconers out there. They found the right one. You know what? You were talking about just this our rapport, our connection here. We are, and kind of before we started, you were like, hey, it's always better to be conversational, right? Because I'm this prepared, scripted out dude, and just occupational hazard. The conversational language, the conversational aspect, I think that is important also. And I think your point when you made it was that is how, one, you and I connect emotionally, but then the people who are listening to this will also say, aha, this is an interesting bond. This is of value. It deserves my
It
attention.
humanizes you.
Yeah.
That's really what it does. It humanizes you. And we're out to make human to human connections ultimately. So we've heard all these conversations. You overhear conversations where someone is just talking absolute jargon. And you think, man, I recognize the terms, but I don't know what the hell you're saying. I mean, you're not really saying anything. Nothing original is coming out of your mouth. It's amazing there's all that sound coming out.
You're actually just providing me a filter for saying no.
That's true. It's when you're done, the answer is no.
Right.
That's true.
All right. So, all right. The message, right? You actually gave a step by step how the message should go in the book, and I'm happy to refresh you if you don't have that on the tip of your tongue. I know it's been more than a couple of months since you wrote the book, but you construct your message in a very particular way for a high impact outcome.
Essentially, well, let's say I keep bringing it back to my cartoon pieces, but those are the ones I create and launch. So in the cartoon pieces, I'm first selecting a cartoon that is relevant, that's going to make a difference to you. It's going to say something that is meaningful to you, something you're going to want to keep around. I used to call it the refrigerator door test, but you wouldn't put a big board on the refrigerator; it's too big. But I want the cartoon to be. I want it to be delivering a message that I will amplify in the copy that goes with it, my letter copy that goes with it. So let's say I'm using the cartoon that I have of there are some people in an art gallery, and there are 2 people that are looking at this one piece on the wall that is a sales graph and the charts, or a revenue graph. The chart's going up, the trend's going up in the right direction. And so one of them is saying, they're always personalized. So if I was sending it to you, Steve, it would say, one of them would be remarking, that looks like the one on Steve Berg's wall, or that would look good
on my wall.
Steve Berg.
It would look good. I'd like to have one of those in my office.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking Steve would like that, right? Sure. So we all would want to have that. So that's the truth of that's the truth, the nugget of truth that's revealed, with the point of agreement that's built into this. Right. Of course, we all want that on our walls. So in the copy, I'll start out. I'll say, well, I hope you enjoyed the cartoon, and I sent it because I like the way it expresses how really we'd all like to have that. I mean, we're all looking for the same thing. We want the line to go up in the right direction on our chart. Now, I noticed, then you go into the explanation. Well, I noticed that you're doing this, or you're involved with this, and we are too. In fact, we do this with others, so there's social proof now. We do this with other clients in your industry, and I think there's I don't know for sure, but I think there's a good fit here, and I'd like to explore that with you. And it's important that I'm saying I don't know this for sure because I don't want to be presumptuous. I just want to say I've done my homework and I think that there is a good fit here. I'd love to explore this with you. And then I just explain what the next steps are, which might be, something along the lines of, please have your assistant expect my call. At least I'll be calling shortly. Although some people take really interesting other approaches, like I'll be calling, or we should be taking a meeting. These are the people in your organization that should be there. And this is the date that I propose. It could be something like that. But, and then also on the big board, and again, the big board's a nice clean slate for any campaign, really. I also want to provide social value. And so if there are awards that we've won, or if there are testimonials we can offer, I want to do that too. So that the person really quickly goes through this. I don't want to give them a long copy to go through. I want them to just go from the cartoon, oh my God, that was cool. I'm going to keep this thing. It's going to go up on my credenza. It's going to be on my credenza, or maybe I'll get it framed. I don't know. To oh my God, I really, it's true. Yeah, we all want that chart. We all want that piece of art on our wall. And then you're telling me how you'd like to help that happen, or maybe continue to happen. And you've done your homework. I like what you've done. I like the way you're thinking here. Yeah, let's meet. I'm open to it.
Congratulations.
Did I get it? I think it's pretty much.
You totally got it. You said, this is how I live it. And I'm gonna repeat back to you the shorthand of how you actually wrote it, and so you can check it off. 1, start with a point of engagement woven with a hook that creates a desire to engage. That's what you talked about. 2, lay out a quick, compelling, thoughtful, informed statement of issues you want to address. Tick. 3, provide your value statement, short, tight, focused on how it solves the target's problem. 4, address the opportunity that you want to discuss. 5, ask for the engagement. You did it. That's it.
There we go.
And the only reason I repeated it is because for those taking notes.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, plus, again, I wrote the book a while ago, so I don't remember it verbatim anymore.
I think you did a great job. All right. To me, that's a communication arc, but I think there's a couple of points that are almost kind of post-log that I want to discuss. The first is that if your engagement strategy doesn't stem from a desire, like truly caring about the other person and the value that you're going to have to them, if that's not really your goal, your results are just not going to be as good.
Yeah, I would agree. I certainly would agree with that. Think about it. You can look at it from the standpoint of you offering that value, but also others are offering value to you.
Right.
What do you respond to?
Right. Right. And then the other key point was, it's all right if you're not 100% successful automatically out of the gate. Persistence is a virtue here. You must not give up, right? You must not become a pain in their ass or a pest, but you must not give up.
Well, there are so many, there are great stories of the power of persistence or perseverance and how much of a difference it makes. And we keep hearing things like you've got to contact people 7 times or 11 times, pick a number, before they respond. I don't really buy into that. I mean, because you can get them to respond on the first time, but God, there are someone told me a story about a woman who was reaching out to a prospect, and it was the 95th time that she reached out that the prospect finally said, "Oh, hey, thank you. I really appreciate your follow-up. I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time. And then you finally gave me the reason or the excuse, or just let's say the right timing to talk. So let's talk." So it wasn't even that the first 94 times that the prospect never responded had nothing to do with a lack of desire to work with her.
Yeah.
It was just
right. Yeah,
just
the timing. Yeah, you just never know what the time is going to be. Okay, so I think we've established that if you do this well, this is high impact stuff. High impact for personal network, high impact for business, high, potentially high ROI. What are we talking about here?
In terms of ROI?
Well, just in terms of this is a pretty lofty claim, right? I mean, things that can change your personal network or that can change your business, that's big. It
is, but It is, but if you think about everything that happens in your life, every big advancement that happens in your life, what does it happen as a result of but meetings? I mean, like connecting with people. So this is critical. I mean, things don't, without meetings, nothing happens. You have to make connections or nothing's going to happen in your business or in your career.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Okay. If you are a frequent listener, one is a frequent listener, they know that I always finish up with something called 3 questions. The first question is there anything that I didn't bring in the conversation, specifically around this arc, this what arc, that you think is important to talk about?
Yeah, there's a story I'd love to share. And it's a startup, so that's good. That helps. It's more relevant. But I want to tell a story because I want to just express what's possible. So this story is about a startup. A dentist invented a tongue cleaner called Aura Brush. So it's this brush that you brush your tongue with, and he wanted to make it the biggest tongue cleaner product in the world, not like physically, but in terms of sales. And so he hired a guy who was an ex Procter and Gamble marketer. So he became the CEO of his company called Aura Brush. And then they hired 3 young guys still in college to head up their marketing effort. And so they brought really interesting thinking to the table here. What they did was they said, okay, here's how we're going to sell the Aura Brush. We're going to come up with some goofy. We're going to come up. We're going to have a spokesman. He's going to be kind of goofy. It's going to be about bad breath and how you get rid of it. But we're going to make videos, and these videos will bring people to the site where we'll sell the product directly online. And so they did pretty well with it. The first year they sold $1 million worth of products.
That's really good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it is really good. And then they thought, well, okay, what's next? I know. Let's get this into brick and mortar stores now. And who's the biggest target of all but Walmart? Let's break in. And so they went through the usual vendor intake, which is just a crowded. Why do we want to go through crowded channels? I mean, in any crowded channels, they don't make sense. But anyway, so they were getting pretty frustrated. And one day, the young guys, unbeknownst to the CEO and the founder, the young guys thought, we need to get a hold of the right buyer at Walmart. And if we could, then everything would change. So but they came up with this little ad on Facebook. We all know what they look like. They're tiny ads. And it had their spokesman from the YouTube ads, and then a headline that said, Walmart employees have bad breath, and a little bit of body copy that said, but if you sell our product, the Aura Brush, in your stores, you won't, something like that. Now, they targeted this very specifically to the zip code for the Bentonville, Arkansas headquarters of Walmart. And they also specified certain age groups and or age bands and education. Basically, they wanted to reach the executives at Walmart. And they had it up for 48 hours. Then they heard from Walmart, but I think it was their legal department or else communications. Anyway, they're saying, "Are you the guys behind this ad?" And it wasn't a good start. "Are you the guys behind this ad?" "Yeah, we are." "Well, take it down immediately, would you?" "I mean, sure, of course we'll do that." And then they said, "Was this running nationally?" No. We targeted it just to you guys, just to Bentonville, Arkansas, just to your zip code, just to the people at Walmart, the executives." They're saying, "Well, how did you do that?" "Well, gosh, you guys were actually pretty good digital marketers. We need people like you." Hey, you know what? So they made an introduction to the dental products buyer at Walmart. And that buyer helped them out a lot, gave them a lot of advice and so on. But she said, "Okay, so let's do some business. Are you able to support an order for 735,000 units? That's $1.5 million order, 1.5
Full
times
year.
their previous year's worth." And they said, "Well, of course we can." And so that was pretty cool. Now, I was interviewing the CEO and for the story, and I said, I asked them, okay, you went from a startup selling your product online, and you're doing good. I mean, you sold $1 million worth of product, but you already, you went from that to first order of 1.5 million units. You're now going to be rolled out throughout the 6,800 store network of Walmart. What did that do to your valuation? And he said, I'm pretty sure it was a 10x, at least 10x multiplier. And so he said, well, I figured, well, look, we did $1 million in sales the previous year. So I'm just saying we're worth 2 times sales going into that. So we had a $2 million valuation going in. We got the order, and now that went to 20 million. So from a $28 ad, by the way. So I love doing the math. You know, I know that this is not statistically valid math, right, but still, they spent $28. They got a $20 million result. That's a 69,500,000% ROI.
I'm glad you did math on that in particular. I would have just.
I did. I always do that. But so, you know, that's the record. I don't know of a bigger response to a contact campaign. There are others that are big, but that was the biggest one. The point is, they didn't have to target a lot of people. They were audacious. They were very clever, but they were also smart, and they knew they had value. And in fact, their value extended beyond their product because they had digital marketing value that they didn't realize that they could leverage. Walmart wanted. And so all of this worked together, and just reaching out to that one person, ultimately that dental products buyer, changed everything about the scale of their business, and it changed the scale of their careers and lives. So, yeah, I mean, there are lots of stories like this of contact marketing making a big difference, but that's the biggest one I know of in terms of ROI.
I think that is like a perfect capstone story. I almost hesitate to even ask you the rest of the questions. I feel like we should just like drop the mic and walk off into the sunset or something. But I'm gonna anyway. Besides the 2 books that we've referenced that are yours already, and the Weeds book that's coming, are there any resources that people who are interested in this topic should go find in your mind?
Well, I mean, certainly buy the 2 books. There's so much value in there. And that was a lot of work on my part, because I didn't want to write a book about using cartoons to get meetings. I wanted to write about what's everyone doing out there, and they're amazing things. I mean, I've discovered so much. People do this they do it naturally, and obviously we've been doing it throughout our history. The earliest example I've come across now, although it's not in the book, is Leonardo da Vinci. I think it's not in the book. I have to remember. But anyway, Leonardo da Vinci was hired as a contact marketing agency, I suppose, to get in touch with the Count of Milan, and it worked. And of course, and so, but there's just so much there, and so there's that. And I'm setting up training programs and desktop contact campaign programs and so on. And
so I was going to say 2 things. One, everyone knows that Da Vinci was the premier cartoonist of his time. And then the other thing was, the final question is where people can contact you and get a hold of you and do business with you.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, if you go to my site, stuheinecke.com, that's my author site, you can get a sneak preview of how to get a meeting with anyone. So that's right there on the top. And so you spell that StuHeinecke. So stuheinecke.com. And the other thing is, I love connecting with people who have connected with, we've created a rapport now through podcast interviews and so on. So certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. All right, Stu, look, all that's left is for me to thank you very much. It's I think an undervalued topic, believe it or not, and talking with you about your actually earned learnings, I think that's really valuable, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much. What a pleasure.
This has been Intangibles. You can find this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and many other podcast platforms. You can also find it at its home on the web, which is www.intangiblespodcast.com. I'm Steve Berg. Thank you. Keep an eye out for the next episode.